Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about ExpressRoute. And we're only going to talk about, fundamentals. So in other words, ExpressRoute 101. So what is ExpressRoute? ExpressRoute is a setup which lets you connect or extend your on-premise network into the Microsoft Cloud. And it's a private connection. It's not over the internet. What I mean by that, so for the Microsoft side of things, I'm going to use the blue ink. And for this entity in the middle, I'm going to use green ink. Those are called providers as well. So I sometimes call them resellers, but I think the official language, official word used for these guys is providers. Right. Then the last one is the customer side. So that's you guys. That's us who wants to connect to the Microsoft Cloud or O365 or D365 services. Now, what I mean by that, it happens over the private network. So let's assume this is our www. That's our internet. Now, one of the way to connect is, you can go via the internet, right? And that's not what the ExpressRoute does. It lets you, let me delete this bit. Yeah. So it lets you connect through to your Microsoft setup by using the provider. So let's assume this is your, let's say, Melbourne office, right? And you have an office in, let's say, Tasmania, right? So you have another office in Tasmania. Right? Now, if you want to connect to the Microsoft Cloud, let's assume this is our Australia East region, and this is our Australia Southeast region. Well, and here is the Microsoft backbone network, which connects all the regions and the other regions, so on, to the Microsoft backbone. And obviously within one region you may have 2 or 3 availability zones. Right. Now, on the Microsoft side, what Microsoft has is close to the location of the region. They call it Microsoft Edge device. So let's consider that it's more like a router, and it has ports. So let's assume that for the Australia region, Australia East region, that's the Edge device. Now, the provider, so let's say provider 1, and it could be, Telstra, it could be Optus, and Equinix or others. You can find the list of providers on the Microsoft Express documentation. express route documentation. So I'm just going to, for real estate, I need this space, so I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to show you how it works. So over here, let's assume it's a provider, and we're calling it provider 1. And what provider 1 has done, he has, or she, or the company has, that provider has leased this port over here. And they may have leased 100 GB on this port from Microsoft, right? And they may have actually done it for all the other regions too, which are close wherever they're providing that facility. Now, what then these providers do, they slice and dice, one of my favorite words. They slice and dice the leased capacity into different offerings. So they may offer 1 GB plan, or a 10 GB plan, or 500 MB plan, right? And now you as a customer, you are then leasing, let's say, a 1 GB plan over here, which obviously then connects through to the Microsoft Edge location and back to the region. So you then channel your traffic through this way. And you may also, so I'm just gonna get rid of this bit over here to make more real estate for me to draw things. So let's say you, from your provider, you then have configured a separate one with the 1 GB bandwidth from your Tasmania office as well, or Sydney region. Let's call it Sydney because there is no region Tasmania, so I'm just going to call it Sydney. So that's our Sydney office, right? And you're connecting to the traffic coming from that region close to Sydney, well, via the provider. Now, a couple of things Microsoft and the provider does it for you by default. And what of those things are is Microsoft has over here between the edge location and the region, they always have high availability set up by default. And likewise over here, and likewise over here, and so on. The connection between the edge and the provider is also with the high availability in place. When you subscribe for 1 GB from the provider, you are either given a logical or a physical high availability network. So in a way, when you're connecting to your provider, although you subscribe for 1 GB, you actually get 2 GB because both the networks are running in parallel. Now, if it's a logical high availability, and on the same fiber optic you are getting 2 connections, then if that fiber optic get chopped off, like over here, you're going to lose connection. But if that fiber optic is have two physical connections coming to your network, so that disruption will only happen on probably one of the wires, and you will still have the other one going through. So, you know, a technician like me digged up, look at the fiber optics, oh, looks cool, and cut it, and you're getting both on the same, and yep, there you go, you are in trouble. But if it's a separate one, or then realize as a technician, oh shit, well, part of my language, or what I have done, and while I'm trying to reconnect, you're gonna get the connection on the other cable. Now, so this is more from the high availability point of view. Now, if you want to, as a customer, set up a DR for your express route, what you are going to do is you're going to set up another express route in your secondary office. So in our case, it could be Sydney or Brisbane or wherever it is. You're connecting to the second region, right? Now, your network has also an internal backbone where your offices are connected through their backbone to your network. So if that region goes down completely, Melbourne region goes down, so let's say, let me break up the connection over here. So if that region goes down completely for you because someone cut the wire and you have no signal coming through, then you can set up your express routes in such a way that the traffic gets channeled through. So the traffic generated over here in Melbourne office, gets channeled through your backbone network into the Microsoft regions. So there are some settings you can do on the express route. So those are network configurations. So the networking guys will be able to understand what I mean by that. Okay, right. The other point I like to mention, that let's assume that you have, you need to set up more than, just two locations, because you have more than two offices. So you can have up to 10 express routes connected to your subscription by default. So this is the default number, right? You can increase this limit, so you just have to call Microsoft support, and you can increase this number from 10 if you want to. The other thing I like to mention is, let's assume that over here, this one was with provider 1, this particular setup. This one is also with provider 1. But over here in your office, this particular office, which is, let's say, based in India, right? And in this office, you need to again work with a provider to get a 1 GB slice of the data, and then channel that through to the Indian region, right? So, but let me move this arrow. It's supposed to go to the port location. Right. You can, what I'm trying to say is you can have a mix of providers in your setup. So it doesn't have to be just one provider on your subscription setting up all these connections. So you can mix them up.